Look at that. Is it my sister, or is it a bat pillow, or something more sinister?
What's more sinister than your sister?
It's a great question. I don't know if I know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. You're not sinister. Are you sinister? Okay, you have moments of sinister. Wait, sinistry? You have moments of sinistry. I think I just made up a word.
I think you did too, Jenny.
Yeah, yeah, I think I did.
Anyway,
I did.
This is my new bat pillow that I got from Joann's, etc. You know, they get a bunch of really fun Halloween stuff, and as soon as I put it up, they immediately mark it 40% down because the prices on them are so obscene that you're like, I would never pay $60 for this pillow. But then they mark it down 40%. You're like, oh yeah, I would pay that much for this pillow, though I shouldn't,
Classic.
but I did. It's like, well, next time I come in, it won't be here. You know, it'll be 70% off, but it'll be gone.
It'll be gone. I'm like, well, you could have gotten your cool pillow, but we sold out of those yesterday.
Exactly. So, when they were 40% off. So
correct.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's a pretty classic technique. That's more of a Costco technique too. They're like, look at this great deal you're getting, but you got to buy it now because when you come in 2 days, it'll be gone. And that's not a lie. It will always be gone. The lesson when you go to Costco is buy it now. Which means you're going to spend more money. Yeah. So if your budget for Costco was $100, now you can plan on $300. So.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Duncan went grocery shopping for us this morning, and he's like, should I stop at Costco? And I'm like, not till we see if we have any money left from groceries, because we go there without, I was like, otherwise we're going to, I was like, hey, I spent $200. Where are we taking that from? Oh, vacation.
Yeah. Costco's one of those places where I usually have a list. And I can be ruthless when I go to Costco. I can get myself in and out of Costco shopping and check out in less than 30 minutes because I can be ruthless like that. Now, when Joe goes with me, there's no ruthless. There's none. You can't. That's good. That's like Joe slows me down and helps me appreciate Costco. Otherwise, I'm just like, get the fuck out of my way. I need eggs. Okay.
Exactly.
And that's at the back of the store. So fuck off.
Exactly.
Sorry. America, I'm already swearing at you. But no, Joe is good. He slows me down a little bit. We look at pants because that's his thing at Costco. And there's some leisurely Costco, so that's good. That's good for me.
Good.
So,
that's good. Right. That's a good thing.
Otherwise, I get all type A in Costco, which is I'm not really a type A, but I am in Costco because I don't really like it. I like it and I don't like it all at the same time. And according to Kelsey Shoemaker, so now, Ann, we have two people in our lives. We have Amber and Adam, who we still, I have to get a hold of them. And we also have Kelsey Shoemaker, who has said that Sam's Club is probably better for certain things, but not everything. So now we're going to have to go. We're going to have to go.
We're going to have to go and check it out because, we want to be fair and balanced. Fair
and balanced. And apparently, if you're going to go get chips, that's the place to go. So
okay.
There you go. But hey, we're not here to talk about Costco today, Ann, or Sam's Club. We are here because it is week 2 of the October Spooktoberfest, the brother-sister Spooktoberfest. And if you joined us last week, we talked about scary books, and I thought our list was banging, if you will.
I did too.
Our list was fire, as the cool kids like to say in this day and age. Fire. I think fire with a Y? I don't know. So anyway, we are here because Ann Brothers is our resident bat expert. She's our bat-spert. And so, yeah, she's wearing the cool T-shirt that she got for her birthday from, I don't know, her amazing sister. Because, by the way, everybody, happy birthday to Ann Brothers, whose birthday was October 9th. And also to husband Duncan, whose birthday was October 10th. In case you are wondering, in the Brothers family, it is birthday month. Today is our dad's birthday. Hello, Dad. Happy birthday to you, Michael Brothers, who is now, probably doesn't want me to tell his age on the air, but he's 81. Sorry, Dad. And you know what? I can never really figure out why people get all mad about having their birthday. I'm like, motherfucker, look at what you did. You're a year older. You did it. You made it another year. That's the reason to celebrate. People are like, oh, I'm so old now. I hate my birthday. I'm like, bullshit. I love my birthday because I made it another year.
Exactly.
I've already been dropping hints to my students that my birthday, they still have, X number of shopping days to my birthday. I have 17 days to my shopping for my birthday. So, yeah.
Yeah,
that usually works too. I usually get some cookies or like a little mini candy bar out of it, or somebody brings me something out of their Halloween stash, which I love. So I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, almond joy. I'm like, I know you brought that to me because you don't like almond joy.
Exactly.
Nobody
Like,
likes almond joy.
yay, bit of honey. I didn't want my
That needs to
fillings
be,
anyway.
yeah, that's going to be our poll question. That last Sunday before Halloween is going to be, what's the last thing in your bag after 2 weeks after Halloween? What is it? It's a bit of honey. It's the crappy, waxy peanut butter stuff.
I
For
like
me, it
those.
was almond joy, but that's okay because our
Almond
mom
joy.
really likes almond joy, so she would always take
Yeah.
those. So
And
it'll
she
be
always liked
easy.
bit of honey too. I was like,
I think bit of honey is like old people, older than us. That's like,
right.
to me, bit of honey is a genuine boomer phenomenon. So,
Oh, old boomer or the silent generation.
oh, silent generation, yeah,
Yeah,
boomers wouldn't be like, we have better candy than that.
exactly. The silent generation's not saying anything, so they might as well have some bit of honey in their mouth. So,
Excellent point. They're
uh,
silent for a reason because their gums were stuck with bit of honey. So, yeah,
exactly.
all right. All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and I'm adding this to the stage, and let's get going. We're talking about bats today, the mammals, not the overly hyped superhero or the implement that you use to hit a baseball. So there
Hmm.
you go. Louisville Slugger, we are not.
No.
Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead. And because you're doing most of the talking today, I'm going to let you
Mhm.
rest up a little bit and I will take care of the synopsis today. So, for those of you that don't know who we are the Brother Sisters. I'm going to go ahead and make our face bigger for this because I already know this part. Or was it? Yes, we are the Brother Sisters. I am Janice Brothers. This is Ann Brothers. We are genuinely sisters. That's not a fake. That's not made
Mhm.
for TV like that one show that everybody keeps telling us about where there's a brother sisters on it. Murders in the building. Only murders in the building.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
hear they're
Steve
kind of
Martin. We're looking at
creepy
you.
too.
Yeah, we're not creepy. We are the
Mm-mm.
opposite of creepy. And by the way, Steve Martin, we are coming for you.
Exactly.
Not really, but
Yeah.
it's okay. At least I'm glad you're using our name and making some money off it. Somebody
Mhm.
should be. All right. It's not, it's not a trick. We are the treat, and we have Halloween gear to show that we are the
Mhm.
true treat. We are Gen Xers, which means we're 50 something, so we're not really cool and hip, but we'll get to that in a minute. And let's just say we are latchkey kids. We were the first generation of latchkey kids, which means that we basically ruled the world from 3:15 to 5 o'clock. There was nothing off limits, and Anna and I became experts at knowing what we had to do with 15 minutes before the parents got home. So it's like you had leisurely time for like 90 minutes, and then it was 15 minutes of frantic doing everything that the note said we should do when we got home.
Mhm.
And then pretending to look like we were doing our homework when our parents would walk in the door. I'm like, I haven't studying since I got home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it was that time of your life where you got to do whatever you wanted. And everybody talked about, oh, this is so, I remember like watching something on 60 Minutes about how being a latchkey kid was so terrible for this and terrible for that. I'm like, I think it's great.
I think it's great. I was like, are other latchkey kids having are they sad about this? Because I'm pretty fucking happy about it.
I loved that. I'm like, it was so great. It was just like this. It was true decompression. I still
Mhm.
love to decompress when I get home from work, and that was like it was great because there was nobody home to have to deal with
Mhm.
anything. In the wintertime, I
Mhm.
was the one that started the fire, which was great, and because we had a wood stove, and that's kind of how we heated the downstairs of our house. But
Yeah,
you know,
preheated the oven, that sort of thing. Made sure there was no
you know,
dirty dishes.
yeah. So, but
That sort of
yeah,
thing.
those little things that you did in the last 15 minutes before everybody
Exactly.
got home. So yeah, right on.
No,
So as
I
you can
loved it.
see,
Mhm.
on our show, we talk about smart stuff, dumb stuff, fun stuff. We try to combine the three because they seem to work so well together.
Mhm.
It's like a peanut butter chocolate chip oatmeal cookie
Mhm.
minus the oatmeal. So there you go. Actually, I kind of like oatmeal in a cookie. It adds a little texture difference to it. It's yummy. We are not cool, hip, or sexy. We know this because we've both gotten both rounds of our shingles vaccines. Good job, Ann Brothers.
Good job, Jenny Brothers.
That's a sure sign you're in your 50s because you're supposed to
Mhm.
get your shingles vaccination when you're 50. So if you've done that, it means you're above 50. The other thing is that as long as you've had what is it, a colonoscopy, that's
Yes.
how also that, which is not as bad as I thought it would be. So,
Mhm,
and the
that's
meal you get afterwards is bonus. That's all I know. It's amazing.
exactly. It is.
We are not a celebrity or influencer podcast. Because that's kind of the thing that you do now. If you're a celebrity, you do a podcast
Mm.
to enhance your celebrity. We're doing it the hard way. We are trying to be celebrities by just having a podcast first. So
Suckers.
Yeah, I know. We are the podcast that you go to when you want to learn things about stuff because
Mhm,
why not?
mhm.
We're actually going to be the Joe Rogan podcast of middle-aged ladies. So there you go.
There
We
you
are
go.
here. We are somewhat invisible, but that's not so bad though, because I can be a spy now because I'm invisible. It's great.
Yeah, you
Uh,
get what stuff done.
this, as you have already learned, this is not a PG or rated G podcast. We swear. We try not to get super gross or anything like that, like
Mhm,
crazy, but we will talk about some things that sometimes are a little bit uncomfortable, and we will say the F bomb as you've learned earlier. Please join us on our website. You can join us right here on Facebook, Spotify. You can hit us on Amazon. Alexa knows our name. She's
mhm.
into us. That's right.
She is.
You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and iHeartRadio. We would love to hear from you. Give us. We have commentary that you can do on Spotify, polls, comments. Feel free to jump in. Give us your ideas and opinions. Our cousin Joe Vieta had some very excellent feedback for us as far as
Mhm,
the show. So just know, Joe, we heard you. We're listening. And as our listeners, if there's things that you want to see or hear from us, we see you. We hear you. Let us
mhm,
know. We want to know more about you. So anyway, and like I said before, we want you to, come find us on Alexa and all that. So, all right, what else do you need to know? Oh, like I said, please like us, share us, Spotify us, all those things. Look, I'll put this on so you can see this real quick. There it is. Yeah, wait for it. Wait for it. There it is. Let's go. Yeah, you guys, you can like us, follow us, subscribe on all of these things: Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon. Even if you don't listen to us that much, you can still like us, do all those things. Tell your people to like us and do all those things as well because, this is fun and we want to keep doing it. But
mhm,
every time you guys like us, it gives us a bigger, better chance of doing it and offering more fun stuff because if the more people, the more eyes we have, the more little chump change we can make, which means we can offer you free swag, which would be nice to do. We want to give you the swag. Help us do that. Help us, help us. All right. So, one of the things that we do, we spend a little bit of time talking about smart stuff, dumb stuff, fun stuff, or anything else that might have happened this week. And why don't you start us off with your, because I got a whole list. So I'm going to have you go
mhm.
first today.
Well, the first yesterday I came home from my yoga class, and it was early in the morning. It was probably like a little after 8 in the morning, and I was kind of putting stuff away, and I realized that there was this big moth uh, um, outside our window, clinging to the screen of our living room window, and it was big. So I went out and I took a picture of it. You have those apps where you can identify things, and I took a picture of it and submitted it to the app, and it was a black witch moth, and it's a big guy. So I took out a ruler and I measured him, and he was over 3 inches, his entire wingspan, so almost just over 3.5 inches long. So this was a big guy, and he hung out on our screen for several hours. So I was very excited about that. You find them here in North and South America, both places. It's one of the biggest moths we have here in North America. And in South America, there's some lore that says it is the harbinger of tragedy. So there you go.
Yeah,
But I'm like, that's kind of a lot to put on a little moth. It's like it
I
just
know. Poor little
hanging
guy.
out, doing stuff, pollinating night blossoming flowers and living its very short life. So I'm like, hey, there you go, black witch moth. I just thought that was cool. He was hanging out on my screen. We live in a rural area, so we sometimes get really cool stuff out here, and especially in October, a lot of moths and butterflies, they actually come out of their cocoons in October if the weather's warm. So here he was, and I thought that was cool, and it seemed
That's
smart. So I
awesome.
had I had to find out what he was and use my app and do some research, and look at me doing stuff.
Yes. Now the one I use is called the Seek app.
Oh,
That's the
that's
one
what
I
I
use
use.
for.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like
Yep,
that
that's
one.
what I use too.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
very
that's
easy.
the one that helped me identify the type of cockroach that was living in the house that I was living in East Jordan, Michigan. Okay, all right. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Okay, that was so
Yay.
fun. Yeah, so awesome. All right. Anyway, that's a good one. And yeah, I also like the fact that your commentary and Duncan's commentary that Black Witch Moth would be a great band name, and specifically a hard rocking women's band name.
Uh-huh.
And now, Black Witch Moth with special guest Taco Thursday. Let's go!
Indeed. Or Discount Muffin. That's also another hard rocking girls band name.
Discount Muffin. That's
Mhm.
amazing.
I know.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm the bass player for Discount Muffin.
for discount muffin. Mhm.
I know it's the little things that make life worth living. All right,
It
so I
is.
had a bunch of stuff this week, so I couldn't just fit it on one little spot. I had to make my own slide. I made my own smart, dumb, fun slide for this week. So let's start with the fun stuff. I went tailgating yesterday. It's only the second time in my life I've ever been tailgating. I went to Western's tailgating with my friends from Sturgis High School, Beth, Kathy, Nicole, Katrina, and Bailey the dog. Plus a bunch of college kids who are always kind of fun to watch because they're so college kiddie. I know. I'm like, I think I'm crossing that line where I've kind of forgotten what it's like to be young. Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Or you can you relate to that at all?
Yeah, I
Which
can
isn't a
because
terrible thing.
I went to a wedding last week, of friends of ours. Their daughter got married, so everybody was in their 20s. And I was like, look at all these fresh, dewy kids having fun, and their joints all work properly, and they're dancing, and they're not even going to hurt in the morning. So, yeah, I understand, Jenny. I was
Yeah.
sitting watching them dance after I had danced for a while, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like the old, like the cows in the field that watch the young cows run around, and I'm just like, ugh. Look at them running around.
Them kids, I swear.
I
Yeah, so
swear.
that was super fun. Beth put out a great spread with like pulled pork and chicken, and it was macaroni and cheese that you just put right on top of everything, and it was just delicious. Katrina made some amazing cookies, and everybody, Nicole, your vegetable tray was delicious.
Mhm,
So
mhm. Making us eat a
yes,
vegetable.
making us eat a vegetable, and I did in fact eat some of the vegetables because at some point you're going to have to.
Mhm,
All right. So the smart thing, and I don't know if this is smart or not, but the smart thing is Pesto the Penguin, which is my new social media obsession. For a while, it was Moodang, and I still don't get me wrong, I still love me some Moodang, the baby pygmy hippo. But this is Pesto the Penguin. I'm going to throw a picture of this. So there's Pesto the Penguin with his two dads. So the backstory is this: that Pesto's parents have died, and Pesto was a baby penguin. So this is the big black penguin that you see on the screen right now. Big fluffy fuzzy black penguin. So this is what I know about the story. The story is Pesto's was ginormous, was born massive. Um, that apparently Pesto's dad was one of the largest king penguins in captivity ever. And so Pesto's mom dies, and so you've got this baby penguin. I think it's at the Melbourne Zoo. And
mhm.
then all of a sudden, there's these two male penguins. Apparently, they're a same-sex couple that have started fostering Pesto, the giant baby penguin. And I just love this story, A, because you have this massive baby penguin who apparently is getting bullied by all the little tiny penguins. And his dads have built, like, taken to defending him, which I think is awesome. And it just got me to thinking. Got me to thinking, Ann Brothers. It's like
Mhm.
there are lessons, so many lessons to be learned from this penguin situation. And my takeaway was this it's just this. Why can't we be as good as penguins? That's it. Be as good as penguins. You got a penguin here that needs help getting raised? Look, we're going to step in and raise it. Do we care that it's two dads? No, it's amazing.
It's amazing. And his
It's
name is
amazing.
Pesto, which is
Pesto, which is delicious.
I know, another reason to love pesto.
Pesto, the gigantic, I think Pesto is currently 50 pounds, which is
Yeah,
that's a lot of penguin.
that's a lot
So
of penguin.
yeah, I love the penguin. I love the story. Massive penguins are amazing. And just the story of what's happening there is
Mhm.
cool. It's just cool. I love it. So, all right. The last thing, and I'm going to talk, I'm sorry, I'm cutting into your time, Anne, but
Oh, you're
I got to
fine.
talk about this. So, I love Taco Bell. And my absolute favorite thing at Taco Bell is a Crunchwrap Supreme. However, in its day, my favorite before pre Crunchwrap Supreme, my favorite thing was the double decker taco from Taco Bell, which has been discontinued a few years ago. But for the month of October, they have brought it back. So it's literally here until my birthday, October 30th, which is great because the double decker tacos this it's very simple. You take a soft taco shell, you slather it with beans, you put a hard taco, close it, and then you eat it. Super simple, delicious. So they quit making them for whatever reason. I don't know. Taco Bell is famous for basically using the same nine ingredients over and over again in different forms. So that was my favorite form because there was this really great dynamic between the crunchy taco shell and the beans and the soft. It was just this beautiful thing of soft and crunch all at the same time, which really appeals to my brain. My brain loves that. So I was really disappointed when they got rid of it. And they replaced it with something called the cheesy gordita crunch. And according to my friend Kelsey, she said You don't need. I've never had one before because I was so disappointed that I lost out on the double decker taco. She's like, "It's better. You're gonna love it. It's so much better than a double decker taco." I was skeptical. So I went to Taco Bell this week and I decided I would do a side by side comparison. So I went to the Taco Bell over on Ninth Street at Oshtemo, which, by the way, is the best Taco Bell in the area. Always clean, always fast. Everybody's always friendly. I love that place. Anyway, so this is what I ordered. I ordered, looking at the ingredient list, the equivalent of the cheesy gordita crunch is a soft or a double decker taco supreme. So I got one of each. I got a little side of cheesy I got a little side of chips with some chos, otherwise known as liquid cheese. And I got a Baja Blast because my students would have murdered me had I not gotten a Baja Blast because apparently and it's good, don't get me wrong, but my students are obsessed with it. Anyway, so then what I would do is I would take a bite of the taco, palate cleanser of the chips, the cheese, and the Baja Blast, and then a bite of the cheesy gordita crunch. And here's my findings in a nutshell. You don't have to believe me. You can do your own research if you want. You can but it's not close. The double decker taco is far and away the superior vehicle for those 9 Taco Bell ingredients. And what it comes down to is this, that you have one of them uses like a little flatbread thing, and the other one uses the soft taco shell, which is better because it's less floofy. Too much floofy. Then what they do is they don't put any beans on the cheesy gordita crunch. They put a layer of cheese, they melt it, and then they put the taco in, and then you eat it. The problem is that it's too pillowy. It's the wrong dynamic of soft and crunch together. It's too soft. It's too squishy. And then to top it off, the oils in the cheese that they melt end up soaking into the taco shell, which makes the taco shell soft instead of crunchy. It's not close. It's the double decker taco. You're welcome, America. But again, don't take my word for it. Do your own research.
There you go.
Okay.
Taco
There
Bell
you
should
go.
be paying us for this shit.
I know, right? Or you can just skip Taco Bell altogether. All I know is this, Ann. 2 words. Beans matter.
Beans matter. That's
Beans
true.
matter because the beans are really the thing that elevates the double decker taco because the trashy beans that they serve at Taco Bell are good.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
They're just good.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't serve good beans, what's the point?
What's the point? And yeah, I've always liked their whatever chemicals they're using in their beans, they're the right chemicals. So, all right. I'm done.
Maybe.
And talk about bats.
I want to talk about bats, and because it's October, and people associate bats with scary things and with Halloween, I wanted to talk about my favorite mammal. And you may think, oh, wow, you have a lot of favorite animals. I'm like, I do, but bats are my favorite mammal. So there you go. So let's talk about bats. I've been obsessed with bats for about 30 years. And I'm going to dive right into the problems associated with bats. I had originally thought about putting this at the end, but I don't want to leave people with a negative view of bats because the positive aspects of the bat is far greater than any negative things about the bat. So let's start it with a couple. Some people are naturally are afraid of them because, they're nocturnal. You only see them at night. So most people that have any encounter with bats, it's because one has gotten into their house by accident and they're trying to get it out and it freaks them out, and it's also freaking the bat out. So I just wanted to address some of the problems associated with bats. And the first one is rabies. All mammals can carry and spread rabies. So humans are mammals. The only animal that doesn't get rabies are squirrels. I know, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so all animals can get a rabies, and bats are considered a rabies vector because they can go into all the biozones, and so they can spread rabies to lots of different types of mammals. Now, rabies is fatal 99% of the time in humans. So 99% of the time, if a human gets rabies and it's not treated, they will die from it. Bats that get rabies usually don't live more than 2 weeks, so they have a very narrow window for spreading the disease, and they usually get sick enough that they can't fly. So if you find a bat on the ground, leave it. It's sick. You don't know what it has, but never touch a bat or any wild animal. Now, the reason why I'm pointing out that it's a 2-week period, a raccoon can carry it and pass it on for 6 generations before it shows symptoms. So a raccoon can get it and never show symptoms of it and pass it on to its babies, that passes on to its babies, that passes on to its babies, and it will not show up for 6 generations.
20-second TO. 20-second TO. So
Mhm.
you're telling me that rabies can be so this it can be passed from one generation to the next in raccoons.
Yes.
What the actual fuck? That's
Yeah.
crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Does it get in their DNA then?
Yeah, it gets they can pass. Yeah, so it gets, it's part of the brain tissue and into there, and it can be passed on. So
How about that?
most organisms don't pass it on to the next generation because they don't live long enough. But raccoons are an example of an animal. That's when I see like people with like pet raccoons. I'm always like, "Mm." And
So what you're saying then is that raccoons, you have a much better chance of getting rabies from a raccoon than you ever do from a bat.
actually, the animal you're most likely to get rabies from is your dog or cat. So that's why it's
Yeah.
important to get them vaccinated. To make
Okay.
sure that because that's the animal you have the most exposure to. So you and if unless you like we have indoor cats, our cats don't go outdoors, but unless, if you have an animal that goes in and outdoors, you're never positive that they're not encountering a wild animal. So it's important that if you don't want to get rabies, make sure your pets are vaccinated. And again,
True.
don't touch wild animals because though bats are often associated with rabies, the animals that are most likely to carry it and pass it on to other people are like skunks or raccoons. And some people think, oh, what about possums? Possums are marsupials. They cannot get rabies.
Oh, I learned so much just right there. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
All right. So
Wow.
once again, I'm going to reiterate: don't touch bats or any wild animals if you want to make sure. There is vaccine for rabies. It's 100%, and 100% of people who get the rabies vaccine do not die of rabies. So it's very effective.
Yay. What,
I
Anne,
should
are you saying that vaccinations can be an important way of fighting disease?
extremely important because you do not want to get and die of rabies. This was a issue. We don't know. We maybe 50 people a year now in the United States die of rabies. That's how uncommon it is. But at one point in our history, it was much more common because there was no vaccinations and there was no vaccination for pets. So, having said this, I should probably disclose that I got bit by a bat accidentally cleaning something on my porch. And the little guy, I didn't see him. I touched him. He bit me and then he flew away. So that bat probably wasn't sick, and the bite actually didn't penetrate the skin, but it bruised it. It bit me on my finger. So the next day I went to the emergency room and I'm like, here's what happened. I don't think it, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, they wouldn't take a chance. So I had to go through the rabies protocol. And it is not, it is involved. I had to have 10 shots.
Unpleasant. Oh,
Three of them were in the finger that I got bit, two in the shoulder, one in each shoulder, one in each hip. That was day one. And then I had to go back every 2 weeks for another shot in my shoulder for three consecutive shots. So for another 6 week period. And they base it on how much you weigh and how bad the bite is. So, I was not overweight and I had a tiny bite. So I had to have 10 shots.
so you got off easy,
I got
relatively
off
speaking.
easy. So,
Okay.
having said
Yeah.
that,
Wow.
but it
Damn.
was,
Oof.
this was probably not a sick bat because he flew away. I accidentally touched him while I was cleaning something on my porch. But again, you want to make sure the people that probably die of rabies either don't know they've been bitten or don't seek care. And the people that usually don't know they're bitten are usually impaired or asleep. But
Okay.
and usually sleeping in a place where bats are common. So it doesn't
Gotcha.
happen very often, but that's a problem. Again, don't. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Also, there's been, especially in the news recently, there's been stories about bats spreading viruses. And as I said, bats can go into all the biozones, so they can be down at the water's edge drinking. They will swoop down to water. They can be all the way up past high above the trees. So they're in all the biozones, which means they come in contact with lots of organisms that have diseases or are carrying viruses, and which means they can spread diseases and carry viruses. So there's been some like MRSA, not MRSA. That's mice. There's another one. It's got a German name. It's also a hemorrhagic disease though. But bats have been
Oh,
associated.
Marburg?
Yes, bat,
Marburg?
yes, Marburg. And there's even some that Ebola might have been carried by bats, but they don't have proof of it
Mm,
right now. It might be a bat elephant disease combination, but they
okay.
haven't been able to find a proof of that yet. So bats are all over the place. Also, bats are very old. They have fossil evidence of bats as far as 52.5 million years ago. So this is an organism that's been exposed to lots and lots of things and has a lot of immunity to things that other organisms don't have immunity to. So they may be carrying stuff that could be very that when combined with the wrong DNA from other animals could be could spread really easily. They don't tend to get sick though because they've been around so long and have this really great immunity. But so these
they
are
can
two.
carry, but they don't necessarily get sick. Okay,
They don't
got it.
necessarily get sick from it, which means it's harder to track.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a bunch of animals that die, then you can test all those animals. But if you have animals that are spreading it but not dying from it, it's harder to find them.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So these are two, so these are two ways that that bats can cause problems. But now I want to talk about all the ways that bats are beneficial, because some people are like, oh, we should just get rid of all the bats. But when you see how beneficial they are, it's important that you remember that every time we break into an ecosystem as humans that has never been really breached by humans before, we unleash things. And this is how that usually happens. General facts about bats: they're in the Chiroptera order, which that word is Greek for hand wing. So they're all in the same order of Chiroptera. They're the only mammal that can fly. Some other mammals have gliding capabilities, but these actually have wings and can fly. Bats are found on every continent except for Antarctica. They make up about 25% of the mammals on Earth. So there's over 1,400 species of bats. So it's a very successful way to be a mammal. There are two types of bats. There's the megabat and the microbat, and they evolved from the same origin species. So one didn't evolve from the other. There's an origin species, and they both evolved from that. They play an important role in food production and in agriculture. And bats have very weak legs and feet, and they can't take off from the ground. So sometimes when a bat gets into your house, people are like, oh, it was diving towards me. Well, you have to remember there's not a lot of corners in nature. And when a bat encounters a corner, it has to stop flying and it dips a little bit, and then it can come back up. So when it's trapped in a room, it keeps dipping like this because it has to navigate corners. And that's why it looks like it may be diving towards you. It's not interested in attacking you. It doesn't want your hair to build a nest. Bats do not build nests. They roost upside down. So, but that weak feet and legs, that plays a part in that. That's one of the reasons why they usually are high up in the air to roost, is because they drop and then they fly. They can't launch from the ground.
So it's not you. It's not about you.
It's amazingly, it's not. They just want to get the hell out of that room and the giant thing that's trying to eat them. So
that would be us. Yay.
That would be us. Yeah, exactly.
Good to know.
So bat anatomy. A bat's wing is a lot like our hand. It has a thumb, it has 4 fingers and a wrist. And evolutionarily speaking, humans are more closely related to bats than they are to dogs. So yeah, so those wings are just really long fingers and little thumbs. So
that's cool.
That's what it is. So that's like they're flying with their hands.
I want to be able to fly with my hands.
Yeah, so like I said, there's 2 types of bats. There's microbats, and microbats are found all over the world, of course, except for Antarctica. They weigh between 3 grams and 60 grams. So 3 grams is about the size of a bumblebee, and up to 60 grams, that's a pretty good, that's almost 1.5 pounds. So, microbats have this wide range. Microbats have good eyesight, but they don't see in color. So there's a myth that bats are blind. They are not. Microbats see very well at night. They just don't see in color. Most of the time, they eat only insects, but there are some microbats that eat fish. They actually swoop down from the water and catch fish with their feet. There's pictures of them eating frogs, taking frogs. They take nectar and pollen from flowers. Microbats drink blood. And some microbats, like the false vampire bat, will eat other bats.
Cannibal bats. Ooh, that should be a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. Yeah, so nice. But most of them eat insects, but there are exceptions, and they're all considered part of the microbats. Now, microbats are responsible for pollinating agave, mangoes, bananas, guava, avocados, and chocolate. So all of those foods They don't have they most of those foods bloom at night. Their flowers bloom at night, and so they need bats to pollinate them. And there's certain types of bats that eat pollen and nectar, and they will pollinate those flowers. So if agave, if you're if you're interested in tequila, that's where that comes from. In fact, I think there's what is it? There's a one of the there's one of the is it Cuervo? They have a big conservation movement for bats, because without bats, then they don't get their tequila. So they actually put money towards bat conservation.
Well, I was just thinking about that. When you look at how important bees are in terms of agricultural production, but these are really specific because without bats, your chocolate, I'm guessing your chocolate production, your tequila production, they're all going to suffer as a result
Hmm.
of that. So that's
Exactly.
that's that big tie-in
Hmm.
um, of how important these ecosystems are in terms of their balance and what lives and what doesn't, and what we can continue to produce and what we can't. So
Right.
cool.
Right. And I just want to go back to, like, think about, oh, bats spread rabies. There are far fewer rabies cases associated with bats, but look how important they are for agriculture purposes. All of these things
Yeah.
that we use that wouldn't get pollinated if it weren't for bats. So
Right.
um, they are, of course, nocturnal, which means they are out at night. So they use echolocation to find their way in the dark and to find food. Like I said, they have good eyesight, but how they really find things is through their echolocation. I'll talk more about that in a minute. The female big brown bat featured in this picture that I have here can eat 6,000 mosquito-sized insects in a night. And if
That's
you live in the
incredible.
Midwest, this is probably the species that you're going to see in your backyard at dusk. So again, without bats, we would have to use a lot more insecticide, because not only are they eating mosquitoes, but they're also eating bugs that eat crops. So different types of moth and
Ah,
larvae that eat, the crops that we grow, corn, soybeans, anything that grows. The bats are eating the insects that eat those things. And if the bats aren't there to do it, then farmers would have to use more pesticides to control those organisms.
awesome. And that's not
And
something you necessarily want.
they don't have
Yeah.
one of their predators, because that's the nice thing about being out at night and flying, is that they don't have a ton of predators, but owls will prey on them.
Mm.
So there you go. So that's a
Yeah.
little Mike, and look how cute that bat is. That bat is super cute.
Adorable.
I know.
Adorable.
Yeah,
Yes, I
that's a
get
big
it.
brown bat.
That's
So
awesome.
echolocation is the ability to find objects by reflecting sound waves off an object. The bat emits ultrasonic sound waves. So these are sound waves that can't be heard by human ears. Those waves hit an object like a moth or other flying insect, and then travel back to the bat, and then they can find it and eat the insect. Now, I've seen, like, at night, and this is at dusk, I should say, when there's still a little bit of light, I have watched big brown bats in my yard fly around, find a moth, smack it with their wing into their mouth.
What?
Yes. So they'll kind of like, "Bing,"
That's
and then right
neat.
into their mouth. I know. I've seen it a bunch of times. I've seen them do it a bunch of times. They also have this little membrane between their legs. It's called a tail membrane. They'll scoop insects up that way towards their mouth as well. So they are quite remarkable. And I mean, if you're going to
That's
eat
cool.
6,000 insects a night, you got to be fierce and fast. That
Yeah.
echolocation works real well.
Yeah. That's, you don't, I'm trying to think about what that looks like, what 6,000 insects looks like, and just continuous. That's why it's just this continuous feeding
Mhm.
from dusk till dawn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
continuous fading from exactly. So, and also think about how successful this sort of adaptation of flying is,
Yeah.
and echolocation. I mean, most of the bat species are microbats. So, of the 1,400 plus different species of bats, probably like 800 plus are microbats. So, it's a very successful adaptation for mammals.
For real. For real.
All right. So in Michigan, where Jenny and I live, there are 8 bat species. There's the little brown bat and the big brown bat. And the difference between the little brown bat and the big brown bat is the big brown bat is bigger than the little brown bat. Hmm.
What? That
Yeah,
is, that's deep stuff, Ann.
I know, right?
Deep.
So a big brown bat you usually see in the south and middle part of the state. The little brown bat you usually see more in the north and the upper peninsula. We also have the Indiana bat, and that we just see a little bit. We're a little bit of their range in the very southern part of Michigan. It's the only endangered bat that we have right now. There's the hoary bat, which has kind of like this, looks like frost on this hoar frost on his fur. He's quite lovely. The eastern red bat is also very pretty. The evening bat, which is a smaller brown bat, and the northern long-eared myotis, which we usually find in the Upper Peninsula, and they have big ears. And the Pipistrellus is a tiny bat. They're like teeny little bats.
Pipistrellus.
Thank you. So, yeah, so these are all that, most of them are like, oh, they just look like brown bats. I'm like, yeah, most of them in Michigan are. So, yes, Jenny Brothers.
I have a question. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
so when we went down to Austin and we
mm-hmm,
were over on the, what was it, the Miller Street Bridge there? I
mm-hmm.
think it's the Miller Street Bridge. And we saw like the bazillion bats that came out from under the bridge. What kind of bats were those?
Those were Mexican free-tail bats.
Okay.
Okay, so they
Are
don't
those
have
the
a
same?
membrane. They don't have a
Okay.
membrane between
Oh,
their
free tail. Got
tails.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do not get those in Michigan. They're more of a Mexican. You see them in Mexico and southern western states.
Is that what we saw when we were watching the tornado of bats come out of Carlsbad?
Yes, not
Okay.
all of them, but most of them.
Okay. Got
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so there you go. Now, another type of microbat is the vampire bat. So I want to talk about the vampire bat a little bit. There's 3 species of vampire bats: the common vampire bat, the hairy-legged vampire bat, and the white-winged vampire bat. And I think vampire bats have cute little faces. They got this little squished
I was
in
just thinking that.
nose.
I'm like, they're adorbs.
Aren't they adorable? And they're found only in Central and South America. So in North America, we do not have vampire bats. You find them in Mexico and then in Central America. They don't suck blood; they lick it. So they have an anticoagulant in their saliva. So they'll usually come up on a host at night when it's sleeping. They make a small cut. They have these sharp little incisor teeth. They make a small cut and then they start licking it, which makes the blood start to flow. And then they also have a natural anesthetic in their blood, which means their host doesn't feel them doing this. And they'll take about a teaspoon of blood and then fly away. And they usually only seek out one blood meal a night. And vampire bats have been known because they will roost in communities of bats. They've been known to regurgitate blood for other vampire bats in their community that didn't get a meal that night.
That's awesome. So wait, Anne, is that considered bat socialism?
I
Because
think it's
I'm against
it's
that.
just like it's a good way to protect yourself. Everybody gets a little bit. You have this nice big colony. You're less likely to
Safety in numbers.
yeah,
Safety.
safety
Okay,
in
so
numbers.
again, why can't we be like bats? That
Yeah,
way,
why can't we be
looking
like
out for each other,
yeah,
and hey, making sure everybody's got a little bit of
mhm.
something, and because
Altruism?
makes for a stronger community for
Hmm.
all. So that okay,
Hmm.
all right,
Yeah.
just checking. Yeah,
And I
okay.
also want to mention that vampire bats usually don't seek out humans as a blood meal. They just don't seem. We just don't seem to be very tasty for them. They will take blood meal from humans if they can't find anything else, but we're not their first choice. They prefer cows.
Well, and we're kind of, I would say we're harder to get to at night.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And the funny thing
shelter
is,
and all
like,
that.
it's like vampire bats, especially common vampire bats, are doing pretty well because humans love cows.
Yeah, yeah, there are a lot of cows on this planet.
There's a
Excellent
lot of
point.
cows. So there you go. So I'm like, if you don't want, like, oh, there's so many, it's like, but we don't have them here in the United States. So if you're afraid that a vampire bat is going to get you, it's not. They don't live here. And no, they will not turn you into a vampire.
That's the whole Halloween connection we got going there. That's a bunch of
Exactly.
BS.
It's
That
a
ain't
bunch of
gonna
BS.
happen.
But their
So
saliva is being studied for its anticoagulant and its pain killing properties.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
Again, making waves. Let's go, bats.
All right.
Mega bats.
Megabats are old world bats. So that means you only find them in Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. We do not have megabats in any part of the United States. North America, Central America, South America, there are no megabats on this side of the world. They weigh between 50 grams and 145 grams. So between a pound and a half to 3.5 pounds.
Good
So
size.
some of these bats, and like this one right here, which is a flying fox, he has a 6-foot wingspan from tip to tip. So they are a good size. There can be some really big megabats. Megabats eat fruit. They don't eat people. They don't eat other bats. They don't drink blood. They don't eat insects. They eat fruit. That's it. They can travel in all biozones, as I've said, and this helps them. It helps make them good seed dispersers. I've seen lots of videos. In fact, I've watched live bats eat, and they are sloppy, and they just shove everything in their mouths, seeds and all. So they're flying. You know how you are when you're like working out. You tend to need to use the bathroom more because stuff is going through. Same with bats, as they're flying along, they're not going to stop and poop. They just poop and they distribute seeds. So there's tons of different plants, especially in the wild, like figs, that they are responsible for distributing all over the planet. So anyway, so that's what they do. They eat fruit. They spread seeds. They have
Good job.
excellent eyesight and they can see in color. And they often have faces that resemble foxes or dogs. So that's sometimes why they're called the fox-faced or the dog-faced bat, because they have that. But you think about like how great a dog's sense of smell is. That's the
True.
same for the bat. That kind of long nasal cavity is excellent for smelling. If you notice, some of the microbats have very squished up noses. But these guys have very long noses and they have an excellent sense of smell and they can smell fruit a mile away. And except
Literally.
for,
Literally?
yeah, yeah, a mile away, they can smell ripe fruit. Now, except
Nice.
for, there's a couple exceptions, but in general, megabats do not echolocate. There's the Egyptian bat, which has been known to echolocate because it lives in caves and will echolocate to get itself out of a cave, but not to find food. So that's kind of Egyptian bats, and I believe the epilated fruit bat, which resembles an Egyptian bat. They have very rudimentary echolocation skills, but in general, the megabats are looking for food through sight and smell.
Okay. So they've got those senses on lockdown, so to speak.
Yes, and they often like to like they'll have big colonies, great big colonies of bats. Sometimes the microbats will do that too, like the big brown bats in Michigan. They'll establish these nice big colonies, and some are solo. They don't want to hang out with anybody else. But anyway, those are the megabat,
Cool.
microbats, megabats.
Megabats.
Questions, Jenny, so far?
I have questions, but they are not necessarily related to. I have some pop culture questions that with bats that I would like to ask you, but I'm going to let you finish this and then we'll get to it. This is really
Okay.
fascinating, and I love the fact there's a lot I did not know about the mega bats versus the microbats, and I think it's really interesting that you have one that has a deficient sense in terms of its sight, that can only see in color, and that its senses are, it's got this really honed echolocation. And the other one that has a different set of needs, has less echolocation and more, the ability to see in color and this incredible sense of smell. I find all this super fascinating.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, just super fascinating, especially when you think about, well, how did they get from there to here, and how did this
mhm.
happen, and what made these changes take place? And I can't get enough of this. All right, so all right. Keep going, Ann Brothers.
We do have a problem right now in the United States with our microbats, and that's called the white nose syndrome. And this was introduced to North America almost 30 years ago, and it's a fatal fungal disease that kills bats in North America. What they've learned over the last couple of years is it's not the fungus that kills the bats. Usually it affects bats that are lives in caves, so you have big colonies. And what the fungus does, these bats hibernate there during the winter, and the fungus starts to grow on them and it irritates them, it wakes them up, and they have no reserve. So they usually fatten up in the spring and summer and early fall. They sleep all winter on their fat reserves. But if they get woken up in the middle of the winter, they start burning calories, and there's no way for them to replace the calories, and they usually end up dying of starvation.
Sucks.
Yeah, so this came from Europe and it was introduced into caves where bats live by hikers. So it's an invasive species of fungus that was introduced by humans. And in Europe, the fungus is not lethal to bats because bats in Europe have co evolved with the fungus, so it's not harmful for them. So basically, what they think happened is that people were hiking in caves in Europe. They came back to the United States without cleaning their boots. That fungus was on their
Mm.
boots. They hiked into American caves on the East Coast. They introduced that fungus that had no natural enemy here in the States, and it found a host that couldn't fight it.
That sounds
So
familiar.
yeah, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
has wiped out large bat colonies along the East Coast in the 25 years that we've known about it, and it's making its way across the United States. The loss of bats as insect killers means pesticide use in agriculture and the spread of insect-borne diseases. So we're going to have to use more pesticides to do what the insects were doing naturally, and things like what are some of the viruses that have been oh,
Cephalitis,
encephalitis.
Zika,
Yes.
West Nile.
Yes.
Those are the
All of
ones that
those.
come, yeah, that have those mosquito vectors. Yeah.
Yeah. And as our climate changes, those diseases are going to become more common. And if we have fewer bats to eat those insects, that means we might start seeing that more in humans, which
Yeah.
also
Sucks.
requires then humans to use more pesticides on their own bodies.
Ugh. Yeah.
Hmm.
Which is
So
not great, which is not awesome. So
yeah, so that's
yeah,
that's an issue right now in the States with bats.
interesting. I wonder if that's one of those things that maybe if bats can survive it, that maybe they can start forming that immunity like they have in Europe, but that's probably years away if they survive that long.
Right, and that's the things,
Yeah,
like, they have noticed that not all bats succumb to this, but then it's trying to keep the tinier colonies safe so that they can rebuild. That's the other
right.
thing too, is that once you've done this, if you've wiped, if you had 1,000 bats and you only have 50 that survive, how do you protect those 50 so that they can multiply and make, have more bats with this immunity? And that's another thing that they're having a problem with, is protecting those that manage to survive this.
Right.
And bats
Excellent.
have a
Well,
fairly in the wild, microbats have a fairly long-lived life. Considering how tiny they are, because of their hibernators, microbats can live up to 20 years.
that's impressive.
It is impressive.
Yeah,
Consider
that's
like a
surprising.
mouse, which is about the same size, usually only lives a year or two.
Interesting. Well,
Mhm.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right, so bat biodiversity, you see a lot of different biodiversity. These are all examples of microbats. So the little white ones are called Honduras bats or Honduras ghost bats or Honduras white bats. And they like to live in small groups. And that's actually somebody laid on their back and took a picture of a banana leaf that they had chewed so it folded over. And so they make a
That's
little
awesome.
tent out of them. Sometimes they're called white tent making bats. This little spotted bat with these nice big ears, you find him in Africa. Then we have a bat right there with a mohawk. They're not quite sure why he has that adaptation. It might be to attract the ladies. And
Hey,
then we
girl.
have this one
Hey.
here with this giant nose. This is a hammerhead bat, and they blow when they can make these trumpeting noises during mating season with this big nose, and it's supposed to attract the ladies. They're quite a large microbat. They're one of the bigger ones. The wrinkle-faced bat, this guy is actually a pollinator, and he often gets like nectar caught in the little wrinkles that go to his mouth. So it's a way to like funnel more nectar into his mouth.
That's cool.
And then we have two bats we have one with a big nose leaf and the other one with big ears. These are ways to catch echolocation waves. So as the echolocation waves are coming back to them, this is a way for them to harness those waves, and it makes the picture more clear for them.
It makes him look like a bunny,
I know,
like a
doesn't it?
bunny bat.
Sometimes they're
Yeah.
called the bunny rabbit. Yeah, yeah. But that one right there, the one with the big ears, you find them in the southwest of the United States. I've actually seen one like that. The last time we went to Carlsbad Caverns, I saw one very similar. He was just kind of roosting there, and I was super excited. But yeah, he had those
So
big
cool.
ears. So yeah, these are all different bat
The one
adaptations,
you have down there at the bottom left, it looks like a moose.
doesn't it?
Yeah. Like that's
Yeah, yeah,
crazy. That is it.
yeah. That's
Seriously, its face looks like a moose.
Yeah, they're a very large microbat. Like I said, they trumpet those big old noses, and the lady hammerhead bats, I guess, can't resist.
Okay, there you go.
Mhm, mhm. In
Uh,
case you need a good book, I have a number of books here. Merlin Tuttle. Two of these books are Merlin Tuttle books. He is quite the uh, knowledge. I mean, and he was studying bats when other people weren't, like in the 80s and 90s, when people were still thought bats were icky and didn't realize how important they were. Merlin Tuttle was really good about this. And the last one is M. Brock Fenton. His photography is amazing. He's done a lot of great photography for bats. So a lot of bat books will have his photography in them because surprisingly they're not easy to photograph. So there you go.
Well, that whole
Mhm.
nighttime thing. So,
Yeah. So there's some
yeah.
great books
So awesome.
about bats.
Uh, okay. So here's a question I have for you, Anne.
Mhm,
Question number one.
mhm.
How do you, what are your thoughts on the depiction of bats in the media?
Usually, it's funny because when I was looking at some of the pictures that I was going to use, they usually have them with their mouth wide open, like looking threatening. And the only reason they did that is because if you poke an animal enough, it will tell you to stop by usually opening its mouth and showing you its teeth. So I think that a lot of it's gotten better. When we were little, bats were terrifying creatures, and I know like the book Stella Luna and stuff. There's a lot more children like bats and have a more positive image of them. Um, you know, I think that I think it's a good idea that the media talk about bats, especially in October, how important they are. And you see more of that happening. But, just remember that they're a wild animal. They're doing a job. They're living their little lives and usually benefiting us in some way, shape, or form. So if you think that some media is like being stupid about it, don't hesitate to send them an email or a text or get on their social media and correct them. It's a lot easier to do that nowadays. So
People love to be corrected.
they
All
do.
right. My next question, Anne,
Mhm,
is that this is a two-part question. Number A,
mhm.
how do you feel about Batman?
Oh, he's fine. I don't care.
Uh,
I'm
okay.
very over the superhero. Ugh.
Well, how about this, Anne? If you were going to make an accurate Batman movie, what would it look like?
Well, the bat would be bats aren't vigilantes.
It'd be the most boring superhero movie ever.
Exactly. They'd be like flying around at night, eating mosquitoes, just trying to live their lives and not have those giant, hairy, stinky mammals bothering them. So, yeah, I was like, it's kind of funny that he's Batman. I was like, he really has very, like he doesn't have really too many bad qualities. And it's just like, what the
This Batman doesn't know what he's doing.
exactly? He's not a very good bat. I'm not quite sure. You can definitely tell that somebody's like, "Ooh, he'll be out at night. He's like a bat," and that's as far as they went. Because bats are
Well,
super strong and fight crime. Okay.
fight crime. Yeah.
Some bats are solitary, and Batman does seem to be fairly solitary. So maybe that's the other thing.
I'm going to eat some fruit. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. And
I'm thinking of dialogue for this Batman movie.
I'm eating all the insects. So
Yeah, or mosquitoes. I don't know. Okay,
exactly.
anyway.
I don't know. Yeah. There you go.
Well, okay, so yeah, those are the only two pop culture questions I had
Mhm.
because, pretty much many of my students, the only thing they know about bats is Batman. I'm like, well, we're
Right.
gonna have a talk. So,
Exactly. And
anyway,
I was like, all right, if Batman makes bats look good, then I'm like, okay, then I am all for it. So
nice.
mhm,
Yeah, there you go.
mhm,
Well done. Well, okay. Thank you. You've done it, you guys. We're crawling up on our hour, so I'm gonna
mhm.
go ahead and thank you guys right now for spending an hour or so with us, the brothers sisters, learning things about stuff today. And brothers took you through an excellent tutorial on everything you need to know about bats, how awesome they are, how misunderstood they are, how they're you know you're not gonna like they're not diving into your hair, they're not building a nest with your hair. Plus, many other myths. Talked about microbats versus megabats, and basically just you brought it today, Ann Brothers. You brought it.
What can I
So
say? I
again,
love
you guys,
bats. Love me some
you do
bats.
love bats. So well done, Ann Brothers. Remember, we want to hear from you. We want to hear, your questions about bats, your concerns, your comments, your
Confessions.
confessions about bats.
Mhm.
That's right. So this is what we want from you. Well done. Again, remember you can support us for absolutely free just by following us, liking us, subscribing, leaving a review on Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Put the word out. You guys, caring is sharing. You could share this podcast. You could educate your people all about bats, help them understand. Oh, here's a quick question for you, Em. If you have a bat in your house, what do you do?
Um, turn off the lights, open the windows. The bat and leave the room. The bat will figure it out him or herself. Um, if you feel like hanging out, the bat will eventually stop because they get exhausted. And you can do my Aunt Patty's method of bat. You put like a bowl, a big plastic bowl over it, and slide a piece of paper or a magazine or a newspaper or something, and then take it outside. Give it a good heave so it can like grab some air if you want to do that. But most of the time, if you just turn off the lights, they'll use their echolocation to figure out where the space is. It might take them some time. I'm usually of the second where I used to work for a place that did bat conservation. So I have my bat gloves. I just wait for it to slow down and stop. And then I catch it with my gloved hands and I take them out. Sometimes I'll check and see if it's a boy or girl. And then because boys have boy parts. And then I just take it outside. Like I said, I give it a good heave. It starts to fly. It flies away and thinks, wow, I escaped that murderous thing that was going to eat me. So.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
Yeah, we don't get bats. We get bats. We live in an old house. We get bats maybe once a year. I have 2 cats. My cats are always on the lookout for bats, and that's how I know I have them because they're like,
Nice.
trying to, So but we've had really good luck getting them out of our house. They, remember
Fantastic.
they don't want to be there. They don't want to be there any more than you want them there. So work together on that. Open the windows, turn off the lights. It's not that any like moonlight or anything, they're more likely to see the difference then, and then their echolocations can tell, but it may take them a little bit because they're freaked out. Poor guys are freaked out. Mm-hmm.
All right. It's a great way to end today's program. Make sure you join us next week as we continue Spooktoberfest. We have a special treat. We will have Chip Maley with us next week, our crack entertainment expert, Chip Maley, as we are going to review the newly released Salem's Lot, currently showing on Max. Ann and I are also going to do a comparison contrast of the new Salem's Lot with the old one that they released back in 1979, which at the time felt super scary. So we're going to review that. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and start our outro music.
Oh,
there it is. Until next week when we have our awesome review, I am Janice Brothers. With me is my sister.
Ann Brothers.
And her amazing bat pillow. And we want you to get out there. We want you to do something smart, do something dumb, do something fun. We are out of here.